Okay, hello everybody. As you're coming in, we'll just give the waiting room a moment to open and then we will get started. Okay, lovely to see everyone joining us from all over the world for this Iptop webinar, and very pleased to have Professor Kim Delbert with us as well today. So Kim will be speaking to us shortly about digital I'm going to get this right, digital home-based balance exercise, and we're going to have some audience interaction at the end. So what we would like you to do is to take some time. Oh, we're at the end of our slideshow. Sorry about that. We have to go back. That's why I was a bit thrown off. I was at the end. So digital home-based exercise with Professor Kim Delbert. And just to talk to you about our website. So we have a website for Iptop, and so the recording for this presentation will be on the website afterwards, but we also have lots of other really helpful information there as well if you want to go there and look at the website. And just to acknowledge that Professor Hans Hovland is our president of Iptop at the moment. For this session today, we have a Q&A button as well as a chat button down below. So for asking questions to Kim at the end of the session, I'll ask on your behalf. If you can put them in the Q&A section while we're talking, try not to use the chat button if you can help it, that we won't be really looking at that. And there will be a YouTube recording of this video on the Iptop website after the webinar. It will take us about a week to get it there. So now I'm back where I thought I was needing to be earlier. So our main presentation, Kim's going to talk to us for 20 minutes about digital home-based balance exercise. And then we'll have about 10 minutes for question and answers. Please put the questions into the Q&A box as we're going along, and then I'll ask those at the end. There'll also be a link to an evaluation survey at the end of the webinar. And if you miss it today, it will also come out in the thank you email for attending tomorrow. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and hand over to Kim. Thank you so much, Kim, for coming to speak with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you all for joining. I'm seeing a few names that I recognize online. It's always lovely. There we go. I need to remember to share sound. There we go. So thank you all very much for joining today at the various hours of the day for you, like especially in Europe, it's a bit late. I'm joining you from Sydney in Australia. So it's 8 a.m. here, same time as Mel. And I'm really excited to speak to you today about our program that we have developed called StandingTall to deliver exercise programs to prevent falls in older people, but also people with clinical conditions. One thing that I would like to start with rather than finish with is some acknowledgements, because I cannot do this work all by myself. And here you can see a photo of my team that we just took last week, actually. There's a lot of work behind the scenes, of course, with all clinical trials that you do, and I also want to acknowledge my funders as well. And I also would like to disclose a potential conflict of interest, because I'm the scientific founder of a company that will hopefully commercialize StandingTall next year. So what are we talking about? Like most of you would know what a fall is, but just for those who don't or not fully familiar with it, like we're really talking about an event which results in a person coming to rest on the ground or the floor or a lower level without meaning to. So that's really what we're trying to prevent. It's a serious problem. So these are some numbers from Australia, but they relate to most countries in the world. So but with our growing population, there is a huge problem of falls coming our way. With 1 in 3 older people falling every year, half of them will fall again in the same year, and about 10% will suffer an injury that can actually be really life-changing, can lead to ongoing disability. And it is a cost to the health system as well. And people who have been hospitalized because of a fall are twice as likely to end up in a nursing home. So this is a real problem for society, but it's also a real problem for the person themselves, of course, because it can lead to ongoing disability, as I mentioned, but also social isolation. One of our end users said something to me a little while ago that really stuck with me, and that was that a fall sentences you to social isolation. And it is so true. Like, it can really be a life-changing event, or losing your confidence, and having to need more home services as well, and losing independence potentially. So, but there's good news, like we know what to do about it. And there's actually quite a few evidence-based interventions that we know will work. And you can see a list of them here, a little bit kind of scattered all over the screen, but it goes all the way from cataract removal if you have cataracts, of course, medication review by a GP, hip protectors if you have osteoporosis, and especially in nursing homes, podiatry interventions, changing your multifocal glasses when you're walking outside, and so on. But there is one specific intervention that is the single most effective intervention, and we all know what that is as well. So that's exercise, but it's not just any exercise. And that's the key message that we really need to bring across to people. If we want to prevent falls long term, we really need people to do exercises that challenge their balance and that really try and improve their functional abilities. So functional strength as well. Tai Chi has very much also been recommended as one potential style of exercise that can help, but there's no evidence that strength training alone or walking alone or dance alone will prevent falls. So we really need to challenge the balance component, and need to make people aware that's what the active component is of our intervention. And if we do that well, and if we sustain that for 6 months, for 2 hours a week, from then on, we can start seeing fall rate reductions from about 23%. But as we all know, if you stop doing exercises, you will lose the benefits. So people really need to kind of get into the habit. So what's the most common exercise that we all know about? It's the Otago program. So that is a program that was developed in New Zealand quite a few years ago. And this is the typical kind of style of exercise programs that we would be recommending to our older people. This one is delivered in a booklet, and there's some others around as well. We're very good as physios drawing stick figures, so we do that as well. And there's some programs out there that help with this too these days. But what's the main issue here? The main issue is that we don't get people to do their exercises. It gets boring quite quickly, and there's not enough physios in the world or exercise professionals in the world to deliver face-to-face personal exercise programs to people. So that is why we started thinking about using technology. And so that's what I will be talking to you most about today. Why are we focusing on technology? Because it will be easier to comply with that recommended high dose of 2 hours per week, and that high challenge of balance exercises. And if you can do it at home, you don't need to get anywhere, and it will hopefully be a lot easier that way as well to complete that 6-month program and ongoing. So that's really where we're trying to aim for. So to maximize that adherence, optimize delivery, have that active engagement with some behavioral change techniques, and keeping the cost as low as possible, because everything. Like, we just don't have enough money for everything that's perfect. So hopefully this will help. But there's one big issue with using technology, is that we really need to design this together with the people who will use it. So I am not the person who will use it. So what we always do is we bring along our consumer group, our end user group, to help us in our design. And I'll just take you through a little bit of our journey of what we have done with StandingTall. And this goes like over 10 years back. And it's really important to go through this process and take your time, because if you don't take the time to listen to your end user, it will likely not be a successful program, because you will have missed something. And I always put the paper on the side so you can have a look at the paper as well. So here what we did is we asked people, okay, we will give you, we want to develop an exercise program that is delivered to technology. What are the things that you will not want to cope with, and what is important for you that we include? And so this is a bit of a map of what we found. So I'll just summarize it for you. Essentially, they really wanted a flawless design with an intuitive interface, large fonts, big buttons, and clear instructions, but obviously not condescending, just clear. Providing a variety of exercises that are tailored to the individual, challenging, but also sustainable, and including feedback, some monitoring, goal setting, education materials so behavioral change techniques, essentially, to make sure that the exercises can be sustained ongoing and keep interesting ongoing. So the next slide will show you what we ended up with. So this is our StandingTall program that we are delivering through a tablet computer at the moment. It will hopefully next year also be available on a phone for screen sharing to bigger screens. But this is kind of the general look and feel of what we are developing at the moment. Essentially, we have an exercise app that delivers standing, balance, transferring, walking exercises, stepping exercises, but also upper and lower limb strength and some heart health exercises. And it follows, like, it's very easy to look at the screen, and the buttons are quite large, and the text is also very clear. We intend it to be convenient, that people can do it in their own home, but it's fully personalized to the person, and it progresses with them, and it gives a large variety of different exercises, so it really grows with the person, and it gives feedback on your progress. So we really intended for StandingTall to be a digital solution that people can do by themselves. So we start with an assessment that people can do by themselves, but also together with a physio, depending on how they go. We ask some questions about their health. And if, as a physio, you have a look at it at the end, at the health professional settings, you can make some changes as well to suit your client. So we really intended to be a partnership there. We have some clear avatar-led exercise demonstrations so that people understand what the exercise is all about. And we give some tips as well to make it, to give it some context as well. Why are you doing this? Why are we asking you to do this type of exercise? And as a physio, you can also track whether your client is doing their exercises as well. So we don't have to rely on their memory, or maybe them saying, yes, of course I've done it, but they haven't. We've all been there ourselves as well. So now what I would like to do is to just take you through our trials. So the first trial that we did was in older people with a lower fall risk. So this was people 70 and up. And yeah, you can see kind of the track on the right. So we had 503 people that we randomized, and there were typically just people from the community. Our oldest person was 94, but they were not at high risk of falling. So what we did in this first trial, because this is going back to 2015 when we started it, we did a first session with a person through a home visit that took about 60 to 90 minutes, where we really took our time to take the person through the app. In a second session, which was a month later, we did another home visit just to double check how it's going, doing some goal setting as well to help with that ongoing compliance, and then a follow-up if they were not complying with their exercises for 2 weeks in a row. So here you can see our adherence to the program. So this was a program that ran over 2 years. In 503 people, half of them received the intervention. And you can see here that our 6-month time point, we still had 80% of the people adhering to that recommended dose of 2 hours per week, which kind of kept quite constant, but it obviously dropped over the 2-year period. But I've never been able to deliver an exercise program that people were following, like over half of the people were following still at 2 years at that recommended dose. So we were very proud of this. And overall, the experiences were also very positive as well, where people appreciated the flexibility, they enjoyed the program, and they felt that the physical awareness and confidence was improved as well. So I think maybe rather than me telling you, I thought maybe it would be nice to show you some testimonials as well.
Balance is the most important thing. So Standing Tall came along and it fitted all the criteria that I needed. My name is Catherine Lim, and I've been using Standing Tall for about 2 years.
My name is Lindy, and I'm here to say that I was on the Standing Tall program for 3 years.
What I like is just that there's a variety of exercises. The exercises are something that we begin to understand and know. The way it's combined, we have the freshness of it all every day.
I liked the fact that it was a structured program. I liked the fact that it was a diverse program. And I liked the fact that it focused on my ability to be empowered for walking and moving out in society.
So I tend to look down all the time when I walk.
When I was visiting my friend and I was on this little brick wall, I thought rather than move the car, I'll just hop on the little brick wall and get into the boat. While I could feel myself going backwards. I could just feel it, and there was nothing I could do.
Standing Tall has helped me improve my balance. I'm a lot more confident walking around, looking up.
Standing Tall, definitely the way the program is structured, the way it's concentrating on your stability, that's the key. The best thing we can do for older people is to increase their stability and their ability to recover.
Thank you very much for looking after us. We were very happy that there's a group of people here trying to help us to make sure that we maintain our balance and we can have a healthy lifestyle after 60. Thank you. Balance is the most.
Yeah, hopefully that gives a little bit of context as well. So in our effectiveness trials, we had our primary outcome as 12-month fall rate, which we missed out on a significance, as you can see in the bolded figures. We did reduce our fall rate by 18%, but so we just missed significance. But what we did see was that there was a 16% reduction of fall rate at 2 years, and a 20% of injurious fall reduction at 2 years as well. And we had some additional outcomes, improving balance and quality of life as well. We did economic analysis. And so essentially what we see here, that it's a lot cheaper to deliver the program through technology, especially if we also deliver it through telehealth. This is including the cost of an iPad, by the way. And what we especially also saw that it is cheaper than doing nothing in people who have had a previous fall in the previous 12 months. So it is a cost-effective program. And that kind of led us to our second trial, where we thought we need to do a trial now where we are looking at people with a higher fall risk for a few different reasons, because they will have different challenges and we would like to understand them. But they might also have different risk factors. So what we try to do here in 518 people with a past history in the past 6 months of falls, We offered different combinations of exercises. We went from 2 to 3 hours, depending on their risk, and we added some dual task exercises as well in people who had a lower executive function. So this trial was started in 2019. So you won't be surprised of the next slide. So COVID happened halfway through our trial. So you can see we were doing quite well during our recruitment. Over the 6 months, we were kind of halfway through our trial. And this is actually something that I would like to highlight as well. Since we've started doing telehealth, technology-based interventions, our recruitments have been very successful. But at this time point, halfway time point, we had to change to telehealth. So we could not do our home-based introductions to the program anymore. But we did it successfully. So our onboarding session is just one now. So it was still 90 minutes at the time. And then we just do follow-ups, phone calls for if people are not adhering. And after the lockdown that we had, it was a bit shorter in Australia. We kept going our recruitment, and you can see that we were finished quite soon as well for 580 people, and it just kind of really worked quite well. So this is our tailoring of our program. So we had about 65%, so 2/3 of the people who had 2 hours of exercises per week, of which about 1/3 had additional cognitive motor exercises, dual tasking. Then we had close to 30% people who had a higher fall risk, and therefore we recommended 3 hours a week. And we also included a cognitive behavioral therapy program for people who had depressive symptoms. So here you can see our results of this trial. And again, we missed out on significance at the 12-month time point, but we did have a strong reduction in rate of falls at 6 months, which was our secondary outcome of 29%. And what is also very exciting is that we had a reduction in injurious falls at 6 months of 42%. We had no change in these factors that you can see here, but we did see a change in standing balance. We also had a change in duration of planned exercise and standing, just standing in general, which was collected through a an activity monitor. And we also had improvement in depression and anxiety. But we did have one issue, and part of it might be because of COVID, that we had a higher rate of attrition. And this is something that we will struggle to understand, like we will not be able to fully explain this, but we think that because of the continuous lockdowns that we had in Australia and then opening up again, that people, as soon as the world, for us, our local world opened up again, that they wanted to do some exercises again outside. And then standing tall might not have been a priority anymore. But overall, even though we did have that high attrition, we still had quite a high level of adherence, where at 1 year now, 50% of the people were still using standing tall at the recommended dose, and also knowing that our recommended dose was different for different people, depending on their risk of falling. So you can see here that the people who had a 2-hour target, on average, they reached 90 minutes, and the people with a 3-hour target on average reached 2 hours. But something that I would also like to say is that we really measure every minute as part of our adherence. So it's not about like if you do a group class session, for example, where you might have a 1-hour class, you typically only have exercises for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so. So this is actually every minute of the actual exercise, so not the bits in between. If we combine our two trials, like we see a 19% reduction at 12 months with a larger sample size of falls. So that's exciting. So across those different populations, we can see a strong reduction. We did some additional programs as well, additional trials in people with mild cognitive impairment, where we could see an improvement in gait speed. We did a feasibility trial in people with dementia, which shows that it was very feasible for people with dementia to use it. And we're now currently moving in rehabilitation trials where we are linking up with the hospital to use our program as part of stroke rehabilitation. So that's a trial that's ongoing. And then after that, this was actually also during COVID, we did an implementation trial in Australia and the UK. Just in the interest of time, I will kind of skip through this component of COVID, but one of the things that I'd like to say is that we actually had 3 national disasters, natural disasters rather, as part of this trial. So we had bushfires, we had floods, and we had a pandemic. So it was a bit of a challenging trial here. But we did recruit 246 people despite these challenges over the period in Australia and in the UK. And our primary outcome was adherence to the program. So here you can see our percentage adherence of the whole sample was again a little bit lower. And so it's really a real issue that we need to think about when we do implement our programs into practice, is that we need to make sure that we follow the workflow of practice. We did have those challenges of COVID where the workflow actually entirely flipped. So it wasn't entirely our doing that it was difficult to implement at one point. But overall, you can see that we had 67 minutes per week that people were using the program, which is quite different to our clinical trial, our first clinical trial, which was 105 minutes. Overall, most people did use it, so took it up. So it wasn't that people just didn't use it at all. But yeah, it was less than in the clinical trial. But over half of the people really said that they had an improvement in their balance. And we did not have many adverse events, which was the same as in the clinical trials. So what we did is, so we had 129 people or groups that we approached as implementation partners. 34% of them took it up, and 41 of them referred participants. And there were 15 who referred more than 5 participants into the trial. And you can see here that the adoption was quite reasonable because there were lots of different challenges because of COVID that we could not have foreseen. Overall, people rated the program as good or excellent. They really appreciated the flexibility and how it complemented existing healthcare services, and that it was compatible with telehealth, which was a great win. The barriers were that there's no interaction, social interaction in the program. And there was also an additional component where they said that was not sufficient challenge for people at lower risk of falling. So we have made some changes in that as well to add some more challenging exercises for that group of people. So there's huge opportunities. Like and this is what our stakeholders really said, that they liked how it complemented existing programs and that they could really see a benefit for people who might still be working or might be coming for other conditions, such as musculoskeletal conditions like chronic knee pain or whatever it may be. And it complements as a fall prevention program without having to focus on it, or people who live quite far away from different exercise classes. So if we look at the World Fall Guideline algorithm, we can really see how it can fit, especially in the low risk group, in the intermediate risk group as well, with some physiotherapy assistance, and the same in the high risk group as well, where we really would like to make it a bit more individualized in partnership with a physiotherapy program. 4 out of 5 health service managers said that it could be part of usual practice. But one of the issues that we have is that there's no, in Australia, but it's all over the world, I think, that there is no clear policy, government policy, that would help us integrate telehealth and technology-based services into practice and fall prevention in general. So what we're doing now is we're working together with aged care providers. So we're co-designing together with them to make sure that we actually fit into that specific practice as well. And that is an ongoing trial that is going really well. It's very exciting. I can tell you about that in maybe a year's time, hopefully. And that brings us to our conclusion. So overall, you know, the world's getting older, but we're not getting healthier. So falls are increasingly common. Falls are a result of complex interactions of risk factors, but we should not overcomplicate it because many falls can be prevented with exercise programs. And that's really what we need to advocate. Like, don't make it too difficult. Just do one thing and do it well. But we need long-term engagement, and we don't have enough physios around to make sure that we follow people up. So technology, new approaches might be the way to assist with that, to move towards that behavioral change component at a population level. But we need to co-design with people. We need to make sure that we develop this program together so that it's fit for purpose, also with health providers. StandingTall can prevent falls by 19% over 12 months, totally unsupervised. But we also want to make sure that there is a role for healthcare professionals to encourage that long-term engagement. And we are advocating very strongly for some funding models to enable digital health integration into practice. That's me for today. I will have a few more slides of some exciting conferences that you can see as well. I'm happy to take questions, Mel.
Thanks so much, Kim. I really appreciate you taking the time to share the information with us about this technology-enabled option for exercise prescription for older people. We do have a few questions to ask, and if you maybe just want to unshare your slides, yeah, great, and then we can chat about those. So we may not have time to get through all of them, but there are a couple key ones that I really do want to put to you. And probably the first one is really around the ability to trial the program. Is there any way that people can trial the program or look at it without sort of committing to signing up or access?
Yeah.
What is it?
So at the moment, it's only available for research at this minute. But we were very lucky to receive funding from our government in Australia to develop it into a format that can be commercialized, so that can be put on the App Store. We're making great progress. So what you saw was actually that newly developed app. So it didn't look as pretty last time when we did it ourselves. Like now we have branding experts and they do a great job. So it will be available for purchase hopefully in February if we make it happen, and it should be available all over the world, and you can trial it. So there will be a way of just having a look at some demo exercises and just getting a bit of a feel of how you think it would work for you or not. So that will be part of it, but also happy for you to reach out to me or the team.
Yeah. And so with there's a couple of questions about sort of the tailoring and personalizing. So first of all is like the avatar. Is there any flexibility that is going to be in place for people to choose an avatar that looks like them?
Yeah, how good is that? Actually, yes, but not now. So we have designed this to with a suit, just like they do in the movies if they do animation. In a movie as well. So and essentially, so we've got a skeleton that we put a skin on, essentially. And now we only had money for one skin, but we will in future be able to offer that to people. So we have gone just for a very neutral kind of exercise professional look because we felt like that would suit most people. But then in future, it will be possible to change that to an older person if they like that. But it's funny, we actually did a lot of consumer work for this. And one of the things a few people said, and then you kind of have to go with the least offensive option. But older people said, if I want to look at an older person, I'll just look in the mirror. So we decided to just go for the healthcare professional.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think that's the thing is that technology, there's a lot of stuff that has to happen in the background, and it all looks slick on the front, but a lot of work goes into getting that look and feel, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And so the other thing, just the mechanism of the tailoring. So how do exercises get chosen, and what are the triggers that might progress an exercise? How does that work in the program?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Great question. So it starts with a baseline assessment. So based on that, you get like a different starting level, and there's many different starting levels. So it really should be tailored. We always go a little bit lower than the ability, just to allow for that kind of getting to know the program. And then as they are doing their exercises every week, there is an assessment, which is essentially just an exercise program that they, like a session that they do, just like any other session, but it's asking them, how did you go with this exercise? So it kind of helps us then to decide on whether we should make it harder, should make it easier. And then they get that feedback as well. So they know kind of where they sit. So we have that potential to change the difficulty level of that session. How a healthcare professional integrates with it is that we have some different, so based on certain conditions, we can turn certain exercises off. Like a common one would be, like, for example, people with vestibular issues, like we don't want them to have to close their eyes. And so you can actually make some changes, and we make it easy for health professionals. So it's all pre-programmed so that they can say, all right, no, so this is not for my client. And then it just doesn't provide those exercises, but still gives enough. Even if they would tick all the boxes, there would still be enough exercises for people to follow.
And so does that mean in future, like when it is available in the App Store, it'll still have to be something that a health professional is involved with?
No, not necessary. So it's something that we will highly recommend for people who have health conditions, which might be vestibular problems, might be pain. So we will ask some questions at the beginning. And if they say yes to any of those questions, we say, please consider talking to your physiotherapist, your GP, to make sure that the program is tailored to yourself. But there's many older people who are healthy and want to take preventative actions for their health, which is absolutely what we want to advocate. Actually, and like I say, older people, but really, like from the age of 50, we should start thinking about this. And so that will be totally possible as well.
Yeah. And then just one quick final question. There's a New Zealand viewer who's talked about an app called Nimble. Have you come across that one? And can you talk about the differences between Nimble and StandingTall?
I do know about it. It's a program that was developed in the United States. And I think the main difference between StandingTall and Nimble is the evidence behind it. So StandingTall has been trialed in multiple trials, both conclusive trials, those two big randomized controlled trials. And as someone told me once, never replicate your own findings. Or try to replicate your own findings. We do it. And it's kind of like, that's what the strength is. And also having the implementation trial behind it, learning from that continuously. So that's a difference, which Nimble does not have, is that solid evidence in conclusive trials.
Great. Okay, I think we've covered the major questions. There might be a couple of other minor questions that we haven't had time to get to, but we can potentially put some of those questions and answers up on the website with the recording when we get to that. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you so much, Kim, for taking time out of your day to speak to the Iptop community in this webinar. And we'll
pleasure.
Call the webinar to a close. Thank you so much. Goodbye,
Thank you all
everybody.
for joining.
Thank you.